Welcome back to Motivation Minute. I'm Spencer Harrell.
I'm Dry Miller.
So, what's unique today?
Well, this is the first time we're actually filming an episode.
Can you believe it? We're filming an
Yeah.
episode, but then the other thing is we're together,
Yeah,
like
this is
in
the
the
first.
same room.
This is the first time we've been together recording an episode, and it's cool that you're out visiting it here in Montana. You're from Maryland,
That's right.
and I live here in Montana. It's really cool that you got to come out here for about a week now.
Yep.
You've been doing some chores around the farm and
Keeping busy, having a good time.
yeah, it's awesome. So anyway, what book are we doing today?
Well, so the book we're talking about today is Never Eat Alone, and it's by Keith Ferrazzi. He's a marketing and sales consultant, and he's written multiple articles, such as ones in Harvard Business Review, Inc., and Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, it's kind of like a modern version of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's what people were saying, is it's kind of like a, because that book was written like 100 years ago. This book is kind of like a modern version.
That's somewhere on our lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we'll probably talk about that book eventually.
So let's jump to some of the key principles of Never Eat Alone.
Cool.
I think one of the first is the whole principle of networking, that the more people you know, the more probability there is that something good can happen to you. Because if you know more people, there's a better chance it can happen.
Huh. Yeah, like we all talk about, how relationships are key and communication is key, and we kind of know that, but this book really reinforced how relationships are everything. It's really like people are everything. And if I think about the problems that people have that I know personally, almost all those problems are somewhat related to relationships. That's going to be the biggest problems that people run into are problems with people and getting along and everything. And so this book talks about that.
I was just listening to the radio today, and one of the things they were talking about was how people, like when you step up from being an engineer to, say, a manager of engineers, you can be a leader, but most people aren't leaders. They're just managers of things when they get to that stage. They're not good leaders. There's a whole different
Wow.
step to not just managing people, but managing relationships with people. It's more than just the people aren't just a simple
It's
thing you can figure out.
it's a lot harder to manage people than it is to manage things, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and so it said that a good quote from the book was that success in any field, especially business, is about working with people, not against them. It's not about necessarily competing with businesses to get to the top or with people. It's about working together. And that other famous quote, it's not how much you know, it's who you know that matters.
And then there's a quality to the people you work with, like you don't want to be the one that's sapping out of everyone else, being the parasite. You want to be giving value to them. And one of
Yeah,
the principles in the book was that real networking is when you're making others, not yourself, more
yeah.
successful.
Exactly, like it would talk about how being generous and loyal is a huge virtue. That returning the favor, if someone does something good for you, if you return the favor for them, you know, just being generous with people is a huge thing.
Yeah, always giving and trying to give more than you
Yeah,
receive,
like
and then not keeping score, because so many people, they're like, oh, you gave to me X number of times. Well, I
yeah,
need to give to you now. It's not about that in a true uh, sort of a true networking relationship.
yeah. Like we always think about when we're networking is we got to sell ourselves. If I'm meeting someone new, I think, oh, I got to give them my business card. I got to make a good
Right, because you
impression.
want them to actually want to do
It's all
something
about
with you.
it's all about me. I got to make a good impression here, but really, it's not. It's about it's about talking about something that they're interested in.
Finding a way that you can provide value to them,
Yeah,
which
and
that's so different than what most people do, because the majority of people who want to network, it's when they need to network, which is like when you're getting a job. Like I was just networking in the process of getting a job, and that's one of the reasons I'm out here. I'm on break before I start my job that I just got.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
the cool thing is that you want to meet up with people, but the thing is, you meet them and you're always looking for something from them in a way. Like it's
Yeah,
that question at the end: do you have any people you recommend I talk to, or do you have any opportunities in your company? Like that's something
yeah.
a lot
And
of people
when you
ask.
try to um, present yourself or talk about yourself, it repels you. Like people don't want to talk to you if you're only talking about yourself. They really people like if you can talk about what somebody else is interested in, even if you don't care about whatever that is, it's going to make them like you a lot more. If you can
Yeah,
only talk about never talk about yourself, or if you're networking, only not just networking, but with people in general. If you can talk about things other people are interested in, even if you have no interest, it's huge. Like, yeah,
Right, and they say that when you talk about things that like when you let other people talk about themselves, like they like people like to talk about themselves.
yeah,
So if you ask someone, "Hey, what's your background and experience?" That's one of the best questions because they'll always keep going on that question. It's like they never get tired of answering that.
yeah, yeah. Like, and another thing is names. If you can just remember somebody's name, that's all you know. And I'm really bad with remembering names, but if you can just say, hey Johnny, next time you see him, you're like, hey, how's it going, Bob? It like means a lot to that person. Just a little tip like that is cool.
And then they were also saying in the book that when you're at a conference and you have a really short conversation with someone, well, write down something you remember from the conversation that was unique, and then follow up with them with that, and of course, addressing them and saying you want to connect later. Like
Yeah,
use use the ability to know something, bring something from the conversation, and use it again to jog the memory about you and show that you were really interested in what you talked about. That makes a big
yeah.
impression for people.
Like, there's a story that I just saw recently of this guy that was trying to talk to this big like CEO of a company, and of course you can't get in touch with them. You know, it's almost impossible to reach them. And he tried for a long time, and finally he found out his CEO's son was sick. And he found out that his son liked hockey, so he sent the son a hockey stick in the mail to the hospital. And then the dad found out, and then he was like, you know, and then the dad talked to him, and that's the CEO, and that's how they just because he did something that the guy cared about. I mean, it's crazy how if you can find something that someone else is interested in, and talk about that or somehow value that, then they'll like you as well. It's like,
I was actually at an interview, and the first thing I got talking to one guy at the interview was he was a pilot too,
okay,
and so I instantly had this connection, like, "Hey, what airplanes do you fly?" And he actually, well, he actually he wasn't a pilot. He was really interested in becoming a pilot. He'd done some flying, but it was an instant bond because he'd wanted to know how to fly. So I'm like, "Hey, I made a video on how to fly,
oh
which
yeah,
we have on your channel."
yeah. We made a video about how to get your pilot's license, and Spencer wasn't he did the video. You actually have your instruments rating and everything. Like you're a pretty experienced pilot.
Private instrument. I only have like 120 hours, so I don't have a lot of experience, but it's enough that I can enjoy the excitement of flying. But anyhow,
Yeah,
I sent him this video as a follow up to the interview just to say, hey, in case you're interested, here's how you can learn to fly. I don't think he's ever going to forget me because we had this connection that way.
yeah, because you had something that he was interested in that you and you were also interested in that thing. But I think sometimes it's even harder if you let's say you weren't interested in flying at all, but you had taken the time to talk about flying and found the video for him. You know, it would have meant a lot the same way. You know, and sometimes that's the challenge is something that you have no interest in, and but still like not pretending like you do, but you know, talking with them about it and expressing interest.
One point in the book was become really good at small talk, which they were talking about how like you should come into a conversation prepared with something to say. So if you're meeting new people, have a few things that you've been reading about in the news or industry trends or something that could be something that could start a discussion
Yeah,
because you can almost invariably find someone who relates to something you say, and then they'll remember you by what you had a conversation about. It's just something to get you going. It's really
yeah,
important.
exactly. And it said actually the best small talk isn't small talk at all. In the book, it said that to where you're actually talking a real conversation with the person. You're not just trying to just talk just to talk. You're actually having a conversation with something that they're interested in. You do your research ahead of time, like you were saying. That can be a good conversation. Um,
They also, yeah, you were saying they're doing the research ahead of time. They were saying in the book how important it is to actually research who you're talking to
oh yeah.
because it helps you determine like the best questions you can ask them. And if you've done your research ahead, they really appreciate that.
Wow, that's interesting. So I think the next tip here that I found in the book is it's not about how much time you spend with someone, but it's the quality of time. It's how you spend the time with someone that matters. You know, like in today's world, I see so many times when people are sitting around and they're on their phone when they could be talking, they could be communicating, and it's not the amount of time you spend. Maybe you only spend 1 hour a day with your family, hopefully more, but that's actually a lot if you're having communication, you're talking, you're having a good time.
They
You know,
expressed that really succinctly in the book in a short phrase: talk little, but say a lot in what you say.
interesting. Like, yeah, like don't
Like
just.
focus on what's important and urgent. Like the last episode we were recording, we were
Mhm.
talking about the 7 habits, and there was the urgency and importance diagram.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like focusing on what's important or what's urgent or not urgent.
Like if you're only talking about urgent things, that's what we most of the time we only talk about or communicate with each other when it's urgent. But we should be when it's just about when it's not urgent, but it's important. We should be talking
and
about.
those are sometimes the best conversations you can have because not everything is ever urgent. There are some things in life that will never be urgent, but they're still highly important.
Yeah, because I feel like there's so many important things that we could talk about just all the like they're so important, but we never get to it. We just don't make the time, and we only do it if we have to, if it's urgent. And that's another point is as like some of the people that we're close with in our life, or we think we're close, like our family, or neighbors or relatives. We think we're really close with those people because we see them every day. But those people are some of the most distant people sometimes, because it just becomes normal to be around them, and then a lot of times we don't spend the time to build relationships with those people as
Right.
much.
Even the closest people around you, it can be a struggle to build a relationship. And it's surprising. They're right there. It's the
Exactly.
best opportunity to even practice.
Exactly.
But we give it up because it's so normal. So where do you think you want to go from here? Do you want to jump to like how to build a network?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so when you're building a network, one of the things that people ask is like, how do you do it? And it comes down to including others in everything you do. That's one way you
Okay.
can do it. So that could be meals or activities you do. Just
Never
look
eat
for ways
alone.
that you can combine people. Like in the book, he was talking about how he would have dinner parties and he's like, I need to meet so and so in this city, but hey, I also wanted to follow up with this other person in the same city. They don't know each other, but he invited them both to the dinner and like multiple groups of people that never knew each other, but he was their common bond, just because he wanted to include them all, be able to update with
Hmm.
each of them,
Wow.
and then they ended up meeting each other and having something they could collaborate on, which is kind of
So
exciting like
always
that.
like that's a good tip. Like if you're traveling somewhere and you happen to know someone in the area, why not go see them? Like say hi or stop in.
Right.
Or yeah, like my dad always did that, which I liked. When we went traveling, he always said, "Oh, we know this person. Let's stop in and say hi." And us kids were always like, "No, let's not stop in." But
And you never know what's going to turn out of those trips
exactly.
because it's the spontaneous decisions that sometimes can change your whole life depending on what happens there.
Yeah, just spending more time with people because at the end of the day, people are pretty much everything.
The things will just happen. It's the people that count because we want to make an impact on whoever we can.
Exactly. Wow, that's so good. Back to what we're talking about with family, friends, and everything is, there's not a lot of people, even in my life, that I can be very open and vulnerable with and share some certain things with there's very few people like that, and we need more people like that. We need to have people that we can share anything with, and you're very lucky if that's your family that you can do that with, because most people can't.
Right.
In the book it said we need to have intimacy to the point of vulnerability. Don't be afraid to tell people things that you want to do in your life, things you're afraid of, just things that you wouldn't tell, and you don't tell anybody these things, but you need to develop, some close friends like
It's
that.
like being open about your goals. There was with people that are around you because in the book they were talking about how a goal is a dream with a deadline. It's not just a dream; it has a deadline to it. And when you have a deadline, you automatically give yourself at least 10 times more success possibility
Oh yeah,
than if you just had a normal goal which doesn't have a deadline.
way more.
And so keep it specific in writing and then talk to people about it because
Yeah.
that's how you'll always have that accountability factor.
I've done that, but I haven't talked to people about it. That's the biggest thing, because you're like, I mean, you don't just want to tell anybody your goals, but certain people you need to it's good to talk about. And we don't want to do that because we think, man, they're going to think I'm crazy, or they think that's weird, but we need to do that more. Wow.
Do you want to jump back to how to meet new people?
Sure.
Okay. I thought it was really cool. The author here illustrated how you can make a cold call.
Okay.
Put that in quotes because he really considers it a warm call.
Okay.
Because there's ways that you can really warm that up to be more friendly. So you can do this in 20 seconds or less, initiate a connection with someone. Because the whole idea is you start with the reference you have to them. Like if you have a shared person or group or institution that connects you,
Okay.
then share what kind of value you bring. Notice that comes second, the value you bring,
Like
not at
what
the
you
end.
can do for them.
What you can do for them before they know what they can do for
Most
you.
people don't do that. They don't.
They just ask what they can do for you.
Yeah.
What the other person can do for them.
Yeah. They're like, they're asking for something instead of giving.
Right. And then back to something we said before, say very little, but say a lot in what you say. Because if you maximize your words, it's they won't get bogged down in you just
Yeah.
expressing so much, but trying to find what the what you're trying to get at,
Yeah.
and then at least offer a compromise, like how you could possibly connect if the way you're thinking of doesn't work.
Hmm. Wow, that's good. When you talked about saying a lot in a few words, I think that's something that also just takes practice to be able to say things, say a lot of things. And I feel like just this podcast for myself has helped a lot.
Here too.
With the more you practice speaking, the better you get.
The more you edit your own voice, the more you realize your verbal
Exactly.
crutches.
You've been editing all the podcasts, and you've noted there's a lot of things. It's really cringy.
I have totally noticed how I talk, the
It's
speech
cringy.
pattern, and I start to hear it every time I say it now. And it totally, it's almost like it drives me crazy when I'm talking to people sometimes because it's exactly how I sound when I'm
Yeah.
editing a podcast. I'm like, oh no, I gotta fix this. Or,
So many filler words that we use that
Yeah.
But anyway, that's off subject, but that's cool.
but we all have it, and then only when you know someone for a while, you actually find what their verbal crutches are, and then you sort of like them for this unique style of talking they have.
That's true.
Isn't that
I
true?
guess.
Like,
I guess that's
there's
true.
certain people that always talk a certain way, but you get to like them because they talk that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But if they were to really focus on themselves, they wouldn't like it at all.
That's true.
All right, let's follow up real quick before we jump to the next thing. After you make that cold call, well, not cold call, your warm call to the person, you want to make sure that you have a way to follow up with them because you're going to talk to them real quick. Like he gave an example in the book of how he was at a conference and he would meet a speaker and be walking with them to the stage. He's giving his little value added statement and he's talking to the speaker about how he knows him. Then he shakes hands and the guy goes up on stage to speak. They haven't actually had anything meaningful transpire yet, but that gives him grounds to email the speaker afterward and say, hey, I had this thing that we talked about on the way to the stage that, we thought we could talk about, and, here's a time I can meet. The main part of relationship can come in the follow-up, especially in the conference situation where
Okay.
you're not spending a lot of time with people, but you have enough where you can make enough of a nudge with them that they realize you care about them and they'll follow up, and then
Sure.
the
So
meaningful part
something
comes
to
after.
get. So you have to do something, provide value, or get someone's attention, and then you can follow up later.
Right. This is something that I personally deal with, that I feel like I have to make the meaningful connection in the moment and get what I'm trying to get out of it at that same time. But it's more than, it doesn't all happen at once. The key is to have it happen in the follow-up, which I'm gonna have to
That's a
learn
good
this, how to
point.
take it to the next level.
Sometimes it's good just to meet someone and then later follow up.
And
That's cool.
even this guy who's the author, he was writing how he spends multiple, he writes people, like he has a list of people that he writes daily, weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, yearly, or whatever, and
Like a list of names.
like a list of names, and then he just sends them a little message to ping them periodically, and always does this with like an article
So
he
good.
sees or something he's thinking about them, or he just has a number
Just
of
to
things
show
he
that
does.
he's thinking. Yeah, like I did that to some of my relatives that I have that I haven't seen in a long time. I sent them a text one time randomly, and then I met them later, and then they told me that it really meant a lot that I had sent them that text. And I thought, wow, if I did that more to certain people, just people that we forget about or we haven't met in
Yeah.
a long time, send them a text. And that's in the book. It said that Bill Clinton had this list of names way before he was president. Every time he met someone interesting or some famous person or whatever, he would write their name down and their number or whatever. So when he was becoming president, he had a huge list of people that he could call that he knew, that he had just had a little bit of a connection with. And a lot of times we forget so many people.
The
'cause
book even says he was like a master connector because he would know how to do this 20-second or less speech to someone to get to know them a little bit and start the connection, and then they feel connected
So
immediately.
what is the speech again? Or is
It's just the thing where you go
so it's
and
not
you
a call like you're
it-
talking if you meet somebody.
right. It's just if you're going to talk to them real quick, how do you start that connection? And
Okay.
It's just
Go through that really fast.
it was
again.
just share how your common bond.
something
So
common,
someone you know or some group you're both affiliated
or even
with
just
or
some
something.
common interest.
Right, or common interest, but some way that you know them or that you heard of them,
Okay.
and then share what value you bring to the table before you even ask for anything they have. Share what
Okay.
you can bring, like, hey, we have this podcast where we want to learn more about what you do to be successful. You could ask someone, and then ask them like if they'd be willing to talk to you at some point, and then
Well,
offer a compromise if they can't do that. Like, hey, maybe we can just meet at another point, or next time I'm in the city or something.
So there's like
And that's it.
there's like a list of like a 5-step thing when you meet somebody.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow.
So
Very
you
interesting.
can check the book out for where you can find that. It's got it all written out there.
Yeah, one thing, switching the subject a little bit, is it said that over 80% of jobs are landed through personal contacts and networking, not through like advertising. And you just got a job like
I
this.
actually read this too,
Okay.
and I was getting frustrated because the applicant tracking systems are all keyword based. So like when you submit your job to a website, they have a job description. They find keywords in the job
Yes.
description, match it against resumes, and I'm one of 200 resumes. And then you may get thrown out because you don't have Python in your job description for a programming job when you may have something else. You may be the best Java programmer, but if you don't have Python, you're out.
Yeah, so you're going,
It's
so you're trying to get an engineering job, which you just got,
right.
but you spent a long time getting that job, right?
Yeah, a few months at least, just
And
after college.
so you're saying you did so many like online applicants, like advertising applications, whatever, and but you ended up not even getting a job really through
I
that.
actually, well, so I kind of did it both ways. I networked and I did the normal application
Okay,
system.
but was it
My
someone that
job
you,
came through the application system, believe it or
okay,
not.
was it someone that you already
But I
know,
had
some connection already?
so there were some other jobs I applied for that I had a connection through, and so
And
that got me closer in the interview stage to a job, but I did not end up getting offers
sure,
from
but
that
you
direction.
sure, but without that, would you have gotten the job anyway? Do you think, or
I think, well, I think what networking did was make me a better person in the job search market because I was more aware of trends going on or what companies had available or what kind of work people could do. Rather than just finding that out when I got on the job, I learned some things ahead of time that will
yeah,
set me
you
apart
did
as
a
I'm
lot
starting
of
out.
networking, like calling people, researching,
Yeah,
asking questions, and
and there's more I can do. Like after I read this book, I'm feeling like, man, there's a lot more I could have done, and that I'm going to continue doing because it doesn't stop. Your job search actually never stops. I'm finding out. You're always
wow,
looking for the next thing, sort of,
yeah.
because you always want to be, well, not looking for the next thing, but looking at what direction you're going for because your goals change as you go through
Like
your
the
career.
way you're doing it, like getting a job, like an engineering, that's it's almost like an entrepreneurial endeavor in itself, like getting a job, right? Because you have to do so much research and it's so much work. It's like it's not easy just like getting a job out of college, right?
Right.
We might record a little episode about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's wow. Networking is huge. One of the big things in the book that he talked about was having a people plan. And so we all have like to-do lists, things we have to do, things we have to accomplish, our calendar. But why don't we have like a people plan where we have lists of people that we need to call, we need to follow up on, we need to connect to, we need to relate to certain people just to connect. And people are so important, but we never have a list of that. And that's what it said you should make a people plan.
I actually started doing this
You did.
after getting things done, after we did that book.
Okay.
I made my Trello board. I made a Trello board just for my job search. And then I put the people I was connecting with on the phone every day on
Huh.
that board under like the next actions list if I needed to call them, or the waiting for list if I was waiting on a response, or there were different lists I had, or new connections, like people I hadn't called yet. There were only 2 on there. I'm pretty convicted I need to increase that list to
Put
more
more
than 2
people.
people and
Yeah.
actually contact them because they sat the same 2 for weeks.
Wow.
I never got the gumption to call them.
That's cool. Well, that's cool that you did that, and I need to
But
do
I
that.
think that there's more I can do with it because it's more than just having the name of the person there. You should maybe log like what your communication has been up to that point. And this was just to track people that were calling me about applications. I can take this to a new level with just in general
Yeah.
contacts.
Like
who
it
I'm trying to
said,
make.
it said that you should make a list of the top 20 people or 25 people that are critical to your
Yeah.
success in whatever you're doing, and write them down and contact them, connect with them somehow. Like have a list of people,
And
people
Trello is
plan.
great because you can put a deadline.
Yeah, so there's this program called Trello. It's really cool to
It's free.
organize. That's what we're using for the podcast to organize our episodes and everything, and it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one more thing, it said there's a difference between connecting, networking with people, and ultimately you have to be able to relate to people. Um, and things like social media, Facebook, they're great for connecting, but generally they're not the best for relating with someone, for a relationship. And again, people are always on Facebook talking to people. It's another thing it said. Most people try to go wide, and they think they have to connect with hundreds of different people, but really, and then you can only spend a little bit of time with those people. But you should be going deep and spending a lot more time with only a few people.
As much quality time with as few people as possible.
Yeah.
Because, well, not as few, but with fewer people.
Yeah, like people don't
Erring
have
on the side of fewer people.
people
because,
don't have time anymore to build real relationships because they're always on their social media. And not that that's bad. A little bit of that is fine, but
But it's true that if you spend all your time building a wide list of relationships, you don't have the time to do the narrow.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe scaling back a little bit, trying for a month, just like digging into
Yeah.
relationships with a few people.
Like, maybe you have to stop hanging out with certain friends or not on Facebook all the time, only spend time with a few friends.
I mean, it's worked for me because, I know just when I've chatted with different people on social media, you don't go that deep with people on it
Yeah.
when you have a lot of friends. But when you actually meet in person, like us together
Mhm.
meeting,
Yeah,
we get a lot more meaningful discussion quicker and add value to each
exactly.
other just by having that
Yeah, like
one
one thing that
connection.
you did some of your college from home, right? Some of it was at a college, but a lot of it was at home. And so, do you think it was better that way, to where you didn't have to connect with so many people, or?
Well, it was actually a little bit harder most of the time because I never got to connect with people.
Oh,
I was doing the digital connection on like just typing chats to people, which was not as
oh,
meaningful as actually talking to them one on one.
okay.
And
So yeah, it would have been nice to actually be able to interact with
but
people.
my last year I had a senior capstone project, and that was huge because I talked to people on Skype every week. We were a team of 4. We talked on Skype every week for multiple hours a week. And so I could always look forward to that and actually dig deep with those people because we had to work on a project together rather than just get through one class.
Sure. So even though going to college and interacting with so many people could have its consequences, it's what you need. You need to have relate to people, and that's one of the things out here in Montana. Just a thought is, people come out here to visit and they think it's great out here in Montana. It's beautiful, but most people end up not liking it that much because there's not a lot of people. Just not that many people to connect to out here. So you want to have people. That it is important to have people in your life.
I have more people in my city than you have in your county. So,
That's
I have a
amazing.
little bit more connection
That's
just
true.
just with people in
But
different stores and stuff.
But then again, it also said that it's better to go deep than wide. Like
So you guys go deep. That's the interesting thing. I walk into Ace Hardware with you and people and
yeah.
they're saying they're on a first name basis with everybody. At where I live, it's like there's nobody's on a first name basis. It's like everyone's a stranger. So we have lots of connections, but really shallow. You got few connections, really deep. I think
Yeah.
that's better,
Yeah. True.
in my
Awesome.
opinion.
Well, I think that was a pretty cool episode, right?
Yeah, I think that was really
um.
good. You want to jump to the next book?
Yeah. Let's talk about the next one.
Happiness Hypothesis. Apparently, I haven't read a lot about it yet, but I know there's some great ideas they talk about on there about how great thinkers from the past dealt with happiness, and it turns it
Yeah.
into a science with some
It's like a
principles.
step-by-step guide on like what makes people happy, like how to be more happy, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's
it's unusual to find a guide on how to be happy,
It's written by
which,
a guy named Jonathan Haidt, and it's got some cool ideas on, how money relates to happiness and how certain things. Kind of interesting.
yeah, everything from virtue to happiness, fulfillment, meaning. That's what
Yeah,
Amazon said. So,
cool, awesome. Well, guys, if you want to get a free book, then leave a review on this podcast. Now, if you're watching the video, you have to go over to iTunes and leave a review there. But we're gonna send out a free book pretty soon, like probably like this week. We need to
that'd
send
be
it
good
out.
timing. Now, how do we want people to contact us?
Yeah, so if you leave a review on iTunes, go to the contact page on our website and just say that you left a review, and then we'll select out of those people. And there's a good chance you might be the only one because there's not a lot of people listening.
Right? And there's like only 6 reviews up, so you got like 1 in 7 chances once you submit your review. Actually, 2 of them don't count because they're us.
Oh, yeah, we gave
Or
our
should
own
we win a
review.
free book?
But yeah, I hope we win.
That'd be really nice.
We need more books. Now, if you want to get a free book, we're going to send one out soon, so leave a review on the podcast. All right. That's
And then we got our website, motivationminute.com. I don't know if
Yep,
you mentioned that
check
already.
that out. And I guess that's it, guys. We'll see you later.
Sounds good. See you next week for Happiness Hypothesis.